who am I and what do I want? What do I think about myself if I'm not hearing it reflected by you? If you're not telling me about myself, who is myself?
You can see in certain relationships how that would make you extraordinarily vulnerable to gaslighting, because you've essentially said, I'm willing to open up even more so than normal. What makes us vulnerable to gaslighting? Is there something essentially different about some of us versus others? We like to think victims are weak, but is that simply it? Well, to get into this fascinating conversation, Dr. Robin Stern joins me again. She is an author as well as a podcaster of the Gaslight Effect. Well, Dr. Stern, thank you so much for being on the show. You're one of my favorites. I don't know if you know that or not, but you and I have had the most fascinating conversations about gaslighting.
And Kerry, first of all, please call me Robin.
Okay.
And I just love being with you, and I do feel a connection, and that's very special. And so I just enjoy every time I think that I'm going to see you, and then happen to see you and schedule
Yeah, I know. And you have a podcast and a book by the same name called The Gaslight Effect. Did I have that? Yes. And I love your specialty on gaslighting because there's so much we don't understand about it, yet it's such a pervasive part of our lives.
Yeah.
And you and I, one of the things that we didn't follow up on our last interview was, and I'll make sure for those who are listening to put in the show notes how you can listen to our other two interviews, but we talked a lot about gaslighting, the dynamic of it. And you made a comment that blew me away, that in order for gaslighting to work, we have to want to preserve the relationship with the individual who's gaslighting us. And I'll tell you, I felt like the world stopped when you said that. I had never thought about that before. So why don't you say more about that? And let's talk about what makes us vulnerable in relationships to gaslighting.
Yeah, it's so important because we need to really understand what we're dealing with if we're going to be able to address it accurately and in a way where we can then free ourselves ultimately if we can't change it from within. And the two parts are, I don't want to lose you. You're my soulmate, or we have a great life together, or I just have that intense connection, or you're my best friend, or I thought you were. That's one part of being so vulnerable to the loss that could happen if you try to stop the gaslighting, if you interfere, if you say, no, it's not going there anymore. And you are vulnerable because there could be that loss. The other piece, which is, I think, even more unknown or less talked about, if you will, is how difficult it is to walk away from this person whose opinion you want to shift. So you tell me, oh my God, you have no memory. Like, come on, here we are again. Or that never happened. That never happened. Or you're so paranoid. And I, as the person receiving the message, I'm devastated that you think that of me. And so I'm on this mission to defend myself. I'm not paranoid. And here's the example one. Example two. No, I don't have a bad memory. How can you say that? I remember a laundry list. I remember my calendar every day. And it's really hard to walk away without getting your approval. So you become important enough and so important that the relationship is not only about nourishment for my soul and about sex and about intimacy, it's also about approval.
Yeah. When I was listening to you describe those two and you were still on the first point, I wondered where you're going to go with the second point, because one of the things I think, at least for me in that toxic relationship, part of my problem was, I wanted his approval and I really enjoyed the connection, but I also needed to belong to feel like I was fully me. Do you see that as well as another vulnerability in some victims?
Well, let's see if we're talking about the same thing. Tell me
Okay.
What it was like for you.
Well, I didn't feel complete as a person without a relationship. I mean, my life was that I went literally from childhood home into college and right straight into marriage. And then when that marriage ended, 2 years later, I'm back into a second marriage after the first husband passed away. So when I was on my own, I really didn't have a full sense of who I was, what I wanted, where I was going to go. And I felt like being in a relationship sort of kind of completed me, sort of that Jerry Maguire movie feeling is that he completed me. But
Mhm.
they never really did. I mean, the truth of the matter was in those relationships, I wasn't fully satisfied. I didn't realize it was a lack of a full fleshing out my identity. That was my problem, is I hadn't really spent more time to get comfortable with me, make friends with me. That's what actually happened after the second relationship.
Well, that's a beautiful way to put it. I love that
Mm,
you got to make friends with you. I think often it's about when we're not alone. There are many things that we don't have to act on by ourselves. So, what are we going to do tonight? What do I want to eat? What happened yesterday? Those are all become relational conversations and we bounce off each other. And so that kind of belonging is very hard to get used to. Suddenly you don't have it. And so, who am I and what do I want? What do I think about myself if I'm not hearing it reflected by you?
yeah.
Right. If you're not telling me about myself, who is myself? And
Yeah.
how do I begin to build that idea of the best self I want to be?
And you
Right?
can see in certain relationships how that would make you extraordinarily vulnerable to gaslighting because you've essentially said, I'm willing to open up even more so than normal. And I think our sense
Mhm.
of self is always vulnerable for shaping in any
Yes.
relationship. But
Mhm.
I think it really opens up for even greater influence with somebody who's toxic or emotionally immature because we're essentially saying, I need this to feel like me. So I'm almost open to adopting what you think, feel, want, and see instead of valuing how I feel or see those things. Does that make sense what I'm
Oh,
saying?
yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And also what the emphasis is going to be on what you need
Mm.
and how you see it and how you want me to see it. I mean, what came to my mind as you were saying that was this movie that I think is an incredible movie about gaslighting and cults. And I don't remember the exact name, but it's something like Mary, Martha,
Mm.
Marlene. And I remember that, and this is may not be the most accurate rendition of what happened in that moment, but as she's meeting the cult leader for the first time, she's being interviewed by him as well. And he said to her, if you want to belong to this group with the promise of a better life, right, you are going to have to prove to me that I can trust you, which means that whatever goes on here, can't tell anyone. And if you can leave here today after our time together and you can go out to the world and not tell anyone what happened here, come back and report that to me truthfully, then I will be able to trust you. And then you will have earned your way. So tables are turned right from the beginning.
Yeah.
And you're not looking to yourself to think, how do I feel right now? How do I feel? Wait a minute. I came to see if I trusted him. And now it's
Mm.
telling me that I have to do these things. So there's this like complete shift in where you're looking, right? A complete shift in, I mean, it's just completely
Yeah,
manipulating,
yeah, it's kind of like
manipulating.
yeah, you said that. And by the way, you're right. It's called Mary Martha May Marlene is the name of the movie. It came out in 2011.
Yeah. And it's a
And
great movie.
it's a great movie. Okay, I haven't watched it, so now you've got me something to check out. It's interesting how some of us, and I don't know all of us, and maybe we could even jump into how attachment styles fit into this. How some of us are a little more kind of like a fluid system in the sense that we're more open to impression and influence. And then these people who are so opportunistic see that. I mean, I'm thinking back to my early stage of that when I met the psychopath, is that they perceive that and they start to press to see, just like in this example of the movie, how far you will go to how
Right.
compliant you'll be. And it's amazing how, just like your example was, he phrased it as to see something beautiful about her trustworthiness. In my case, it was to see whether or not how vulnerable I wanted, how much authenticity I wanted in a relationship, which was a really big buzzword for me. So it's interesting how they sort of, in a way, they get you to adopt their language, but the same way they're sort of adopting your language as a way to convince you that you're on the same page without realizing that it's exploitation.
Well, they're taking something that you're saying you want.
Mm,
And then they're kind of turning it inside out to manipulate you for their own reason. I mean, I'll share this story. My God, I haven't thought about this in so many years. But I had a colleague who I met in a some kind of a therapy retreat weekend. And we got along really well. And it was not at all a romantic thing. It was just we were good friends. But he was deep into this therapy world that I was not deep into. But I went to the lectures and I was in therapy with somebody connected to them. And at some point, he said, you're entrepreneurial. I'm entrepreneurial. I had private practice. It was thriving. And he had a executive search business or something like that. And he said, why don't we open up another business and you'll put your clinical expertise in and I'll use my business expertise and we'll help people get part-time jobs, not full-time jobs. Great. And you'll make a lot of money, more so than you would in your practice. Okay, tell me more. He said, but I really like to have my business meetings like while I'm holding someone. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, we were actually having the meeting in my apartment. I lived alone at the time. It was many, many years ago, before kids, before husbands. And he said, why don't we let's sit on the couch? I said, I'm not comfortable with that. And he said, you're not comfortable or you're afraid?
Mm.
And I said, well, I'm a little afraid now because what are you talking about?
Right, right.
But I'm just not comfortable with it. He said, I think that it's very comfortable. You have this great couch. We'll just lie here together, married. You have a boyfriend, no intimacy physical, but it'll help us to really solidify that vulnerable connection we both feel. You feel it too, don't you? I said, well, I do feel open with you. I do feel like I'd like to take our relationship and continue it and deepen it with maybe a joint project. But no, I don't want to lie on the couch. So I managed not to lie on the couch, but I didn't manage to convince myself that I was not lying on the couch because of discomfort. Somehow he continued to go on and on about how it's really because you're afraid. You have to be afraid with me. And, slowing his cadence, looking at me directly in the eyes, using my vulnerability in that moment to try to tell me what I was feeling. And so back to your earlier question, when you're used to having somebody tell you what you're feeling or invite you to have the feelings that they're telling you that you have, even if you're not completely certain about those feelings, at least you're going to be in that conversation. Then all of a sudden you're alone and you don't have that, whether you're belonging to someone or that relational mess, which often it is, and relational mix-up. It's hard to then tease out, well, what do I really feel?
Yeah. Have you seen the movie Inception? That the essential question is, can you plant an idea in somebody else's brain that's not originally their own? And in the movie, sort of like, I don't know, it's really hard to do. And I'm thinking, no, it's not. It happens all the time. That's a great example. Your example was he was trying to convince you that you're afraid when really what's happening is that situation wasn't safe.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. Fascinating. But
And there was actually a group of people who, I want to say, a lot of therapists, and I don't mean this to put down retreats and therapy because I'm a therapist. I've taken many patients on retreats, and it can be an incredible experience to have that extended period of time. But when somebody tells you what they feel, and your first instinct as a therapist is to say, or as another person, no, you don't feel that way. You feel this way. It is very destabilizing if you're very close to that person, if they know you really well, if you trust them
yeah.
to be able to tell the truth. I'm thinking about someone now who was in one of those groups and said, well, I found out that I really have a much worse opinion of myself than I thought I did. Tell me more. How did you find out? Well, so and so told me that. So, well, what was that based on? And so, whether it's based on something that you think is valid, when somebody who you completely trusted and believe has your good in their heart or your interest in their heart, it's really hard to say no, Kerry, that's completely off.
It is. Especially when you know, I think that that's a huge vulnerability in therapy, and that there are not good therapists, that
Mhm.
you go into a setting believing that this person has your best interest and that somehow they're the expert of humans, the human psychology of humans, that and therefore they're going to be an expert of you. That does make you extremely vulnerable. I got to the point where I learned when I would phrase something, and I'd be curious how you did it. I say, what do you think about this idea? And then I would throw out whatever it was. Or, one of the things I'm wondering was this: do you think there's any that feels close or not?
Mhm.
I would make sure that I would offer them a bit like, no, that's not close at all. Like, oh, okay. I,
Mhm.
I could have gotten it wrong. And
Yeah.
then we'd move right back. We'd move on.
Yeah.
But I really learned to offer an out, because you're right. It's a powerful relationships. I think this is the other uncomfortable part of all of this. Powerful relationships are intoxicating. And if you're not really a very ethical person, it's not that hard to walk off the line and become manipulative yourself.
Or even with doctors, I've done a lot of consulting on medical gaslighting, where
Mm,
I had this incredibly close relationship in a very positive way with my obstetrician when I had children. And at some point after one of my kids was born, I had taken some medicine. It turned out, the end of the story first, that I was allergic to this medicine, and in a way where it gave me some variant of hepatitis. But I didn't know that. I started having symptoms, and I'm calling this guy who was larger than life. He had delivered both of my children. He was a big name at the hospital. And I'm saying, I am really not feeling well. And his response was, honey, just go and have a drink tonight.
oh,
And you'll,
jeez.
and you'll relax because you're a mother and now you have two children. It's a lot. And I thought, of course, he's right. And so I went and I had a drink. And the next day I was even sicker. And I called him up. I said, I just don't know what's going on with me, but I feel like I need to come in. He said, just stay with it. Have a drink tonight. And after 2 days, you're going to feel a lot better. And of course, because I did have the variant of hepatitis, not only did I not feel better,
Right.
but I felt really sick, and I was very ill. And it was so hard for me to believe that he was wrong.
Yeah.
Not about the drink. Obviously, you don't
Yeah.
have to drink if you're sick, but like, how did he not know? How did he give me the wrong advice? And how did he insist with certainty? And that's a big piece of it too, the gaslighting that trying to implant. There's certain, insist with certainty that that's what was going on for me. So much so that I was walking around saying, I'm just stressed out.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. And it goes back to where we started today. And that is that the one who's accepting it is preserving the connection. Because if
that's
you
right.
said, no, you're wrong, I'm sorry, doctor, you've delivered two of my kids, but I think you're really missing it here, that would have challenged it in a way that would have probably felt very uncomfortable for you.
I would have felt disrespectful.
Yes, exactly.
And
Exactly.
so, that's another thing, back to your question about how does this happen? Um, we come to those relationships with feelings about the person that are not about that vulnerability necessarily, but are often about the power dynamic. I respect you. I've read all your books. You delivered my children. You saved my mother's life. You've been my teacher for years. You're the best friend of my therapist, and he trusts you. I mean, all this stuff. Or you're the first person to ever recognize that about me.
Yeah.
You know, um, one a patient of mine was very vulnerable to a guy who said, I see that you are trying so hard to work on yourself. And so I'm just going to give you all the help that I possibly can give you. And ultimately, he gave her advice, like told this story, maybe even with you, about they're walking down the street, and
Yes.
and he
She had to
said,
keep her head
look
down.
down.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And all in the spirit of, I'm just trying to make our relationship better. I see you and I see what you're doing more than you see yourself.
And when I hear you say things like that, that all of that is so important. We want those things in a relationship. We want to be seen. We want someone to know us. We want somebody to, even sometimes, to rescue us if we feel like we're out of our element. And so there's a part of me that says, in order to protect ourselves, the answer can't be we just don't look for those things. It has to be something else, because it's not wrong to want. I think that's what bothers me about today's culture is we come in with such a black and white
Right.
sort of perspective. It's that just don't be vulnerable. And then that's all this would go away. Like, no, it's not that simple.
Right.
Yeah. So what do you
I
think is a better way through this?
staying to what you know inside,
Mm.
staying grounded in your own perceptions. And often that means taking a little break. Maybe it's a weekend, maybe it's just a cup of coffee, maybe it's just getting out of the house or being by yourself and saying, wait a minute, what do I really feel? What would I tell a friend if I saw my friend suddenly looking down at the street, or I saw my friend suddenly having a scotch 3 nights in a row, or vodka, whatever the drink was, because they weren't feeling well, and the doctor gave them that prescription, what would I say?
Yeah.
Maybe you're just too bought into that person. And sometimes, maybe I didn't write enough about, is that if you can nudge yourself to the point where you can take a little step, that may be the gateway to a larger opening or many more steps. You know what? I'm just not going to do it today. You know what? Maybe you're right. And I did say this, I did talk about this in my book. That is the way to get out of the power struggle. Maybe you're right, but I'm just not up for it today. Or I'll try it tomorrow. Or
Yeah.
let me think about it. And yet, even in doing that, you're pulling back a little bit. And when you want to be that soulmate connection, you don't even want to pull back.
Yeah. No, I
When
know.
somebody comes to me, Kerry, and they say, oh my God, he's my soulmate, I get worried.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation today. So how can people find out more about the podcast as well as the book and also about what you're doing right now? And I want to jump over and talk to you in a podcast extra about what can we do about how to stay vulnerable in a relationship, but also maintain integrity with ourselves. So how can people learn out more about you?
So they can find me at robinstern.com, and a podcast is there, and my work at Yale and emotional intelligence, which I'm very proud of, and the world really needs more of it now.
Right,
Is
we do.
there, and my books are there, and I welcome visitors all the time. Thank you. And thank you, Kerry, for this conversation and for your insightful and incisive questions. They're always provocative and in the best kind of way. So thank you.
I deeply appreciate it. I deeply appreciate the work that you're doing as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's 2 a.m. again, and you're replaying that whole conversation over, and you're wondering to yourself, was it really that bad, or maybe I'm just being dramatic? So you start to draft that I'm sorry text again, because the guilt that you're feeling or the confusion you're experiencing is just unbearable. And you know this loop because you've been there before, but I want you to know that you're not alone. I'm Dr. Kerry McAvoy. I'm a retired psychologist, and for 25 years, I've been helping people untangle exactly what toxic relationships do to your mind, how they create the confusion, the self-doubt, and that trauma bond that keeps pulling you back in. Here's the truth. Recovery isn't about getting more information. It's about having the right support in the exact moment you need it. That's why I've created Reclaim You. It's a private, always available coaching app built from my work and my content, organized into an extensive library that you can actually use when you're triggered. Inside it, you'll get 5-minute lessons when your brain can't handle a deep dive, check-ins that meet you exactly where you are, whether you're feeling strong, shattered, or numb, boundary scripts that help you say no without over-explaining, grounding tools that work fast when you're activated, and progress tracking so you can see proof you're healing even on days when it feels like you're not. There's no appointments, no waiting, no judgment, just practical support right when you need it. Reclaim You, real help in real time, right in your pocket. And it's a coaching support, not therapy or emergency care. Learn more at studio.com/Dr. Kerry. So start your healing today and reclaim you.